Science father of the plant-based nutrition movement. He did a lot of his work at Cornell University and before that Virginia Tech. He's authored over 300 research papers and did the most comprehensive study of diet and disease ever undertaken in China. And then, as John mentioned, he's co-authored still a best-selling book, The China Study, and of course was featured in Forks Over Knives. So why don't you come on up here, Dad, and give you a few minutes here.
Thank you so much, Nelson, and thank you again for coming to this rally. I just enjoyed a personal pleasure, I have to say, and listening to John Corey stand up here before a group of people and speak. I had heard John doesn't do that very often, so I said, John, it is a pleasure to hear you up here. Yes. In any case, my chore, I guess you could say, is to define a little bit about, and it is very little bit, about this whole idea of plant-based eating, if you will. I'll start out first and describe what is the definition. I don't think I need to tell you what it is. I'm sure you all know. Fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, in a whole food form without adding back the salt, sugar, and fat. So that's it in a nutshell. In science, we tend to describe that diet, that kind of eating, if you will, that dietary pattern in terms of its composition. And in this case, this diet is low in protein, low in fat, and very high in carbohydrate. Carbohydrates, by the way, you know, is only produced in plants. So we're talking about a high-carb diet, not a low-carb diet, the antithesis. This kind of diet is very different from the standard American diet, which I would argue already is too high in fat. It's around 35–40% of total calories. It's already too high in refined carbohydrates, and too high in the wrong kind of protein, mostly from the animal sources. So this is an improvement, substantially different from the standard traditional American diet that has brought us so many problems. It's also, by the words I just said, our high-carb diet, I don't want to use that too liberally, our high-carb diet is very, very different from a low-carb diet, which incidentally, there's been several books written by the low-carb people, just different names. Atkins, the Zone diet, the Paleo diet, and you know the rest of them. They just changed the names, they're all the same. The low-carb diet basically is high protein, high fat, and that's the real agenda of those people writing those books, I must tell you, to get us back to eating our high protein, high fat foods. Now, I just wanted to add also that the evidence for this information, and I actually came to where I am today because of the evidence, doing the science with many, many students and colleagues, which was a very enjoyable idea. This diet is not just about preventing future problems like heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. It's incidentally, and here's the real key thing that we need to carry forward. This diet is about treating existing disease. The results that we're now seeing is truly, truly remarkable. And of course, it's very different from the way we tend to do that with drugs and so forth. In fact, the evidence is so strong, and it's also so broad in the spectrum. There's a host of different diseases and ailments that we suffer from time to time. And so this idea has this amazing ability to treat a whole host of different diseases at the same time, unlike a drug. A drug is usually targeted, one disease at a time, or nutrients, one nutrient at a time. We're talking about the whole thing working together as nature had planned it in the beginning. It's also a very rapid response. So I conclude my remarks on the evidence, if you will, to simply share with you my enthusiasm for the way this evidence has emerged. It is truly tremendous in terms of what it can do. Put people on this diet for whatever time. Nelson's done this with some of his intervention programs. And you can see within days, certainly within a week, amazing changes. And so this is going to carry into the future forever, I have no doubt. This actually is a challenge, obviously. It's a challenge to a lot of systems. It's a challenge to science itself. I've been in the formal scientific community for many, many years. Actually, it's going to be 59 years ago when I first started this, I have to tell you. But I have seen how science works. I've been really involved in the policy and all sorts of issues like this. The science, in fact, is also partly responsible. The science of the present day is partly responsible for the fact that we haven't heard this before. Science, the best of science, as we like to say, or at least my colleagues like to say, science is best done when we focus our hypotheses, we focus our ideas, one nutrient at a time, one mechanism at a time, one disease outcome at a time. That's the problem, and that's why there's so many people and so confused, and so easily confused in this country, because various and sundry people with various and sundry agendas want to talk about one thing at a time. That's the source, in fact, of the whole drug mantra, if you will, the whole drug industry, one thing at a time. And so it's a challenge. Science, as I'd like to say, is reductionist. Reductionist. An old idea, but it's looking at one part, not the whole. In contrast, nutrition. When it works, it does not work with individual nutrients. We know nutrient supplements is not the way to go. It's not the way to go just to take out the fat alone. It's the whole diet. When we do it that way, we can see what happens in the cells. And that's where the true power of this idea really comes from. Watching things work together right in front of your eyes, if you look at the cell to see how nature planned it. It's really amazing. I call this holistic. I like to put the W in front of that word because we're really talking about the whole, if you will. Now, how did I get to this point being so crazy like this? I was raised on a dairy farm milking cows. I was the first in my family to go to college, and I didn't know, I had no agenda. I just enjoyed the opportunity of being in graduate school finally and doing some research and just taking it wherever it led me. And I got involved in doing research that came out on the other end exactly opposite what I had thought. Being raised on a farm, I thought high protein diets, animal sources, of course, was the best way to go, the good old American diet. In reality, what our research showed us over the years with really a lot of colleagues of mine that joined me in this effort, we did it on a part-time, on a bit-by-bit basis, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, it all added up to a holistic message. Now, and I'll just finish off, wanted to say one idea. As we move forward in the future, as we think about, why people haven't heard this before, we ought to really understand a little bit about the reasons why the present system exists the way it does. There's historical reasons, but I'm going to argue there's also scientific reasons. And so I've actually developed some ideas I've been lecturing about having to do with the fundamental science that underwrites 5 industries. The food industry, the drug industry, the nutrient supplement industry, the medical practice industry, and the cancer industry. If you think about them, each of those industries are huge, hundreds of billions, even maybe trillions of dollars over the years. If you look at the fundamental science, which I've spent some time now doing, I will do a debate with anyone in any of those communities, and I have done some. I will challenge them that the fundamental science for our believing, the things we believe about cancer, the way we get treated, the way we think about food, the way we use drugs without even thinking, to be honest about it, all those 5 industries can now be challenged with good, sound, fundamental science. It's a question of just getting it out there. So this idea about the whole food diet comes full circle, in my view. It really deals with real issues, and quite frankly, it goes beyond even the biology and the medicine. And I think that actually, if this is all true, if you accept this, that the evidence is there is a matter of communication. It's a matter of awareness. It's really a matter of awareness, getting the people to hear the story. And so this is the kind of thing that I get excited about talking to you folks, because I'm sure you do appreciate that. What we need to do is simply make people aware and let them make their own decisions, and instead of letting authorities make the decisions for us. Thank you very much.